In this unit of our InDesign CS6 course, we're going to talk about the dictionary, spelling, and autocorrect layouts of our InDesign Preferences dialog box. Let's start first with the dictionary. We have some options here. The language by default is set for English USA if you have an American install, although we have a number of other options here, as you can clearly see. And the default install for wherever you are worldwide is what will be loaded in for the language for your dictionary. You have the option when you install, or if you choose to change your preferences to reinstall certain elements of InDesign CS6, to add more than your default dictionary. So you could actually check spelling, justification, hyphenation rules for any of a number of languages at the same time when you're working with InDesign CS6 documents. We're going to leave it at the default setting where we had it before. So in my case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make that English USA. And beneath that, you'll see exactly where that is stored in your system. So in my case, since I'm working with a Windows PC today, it shows it in my C directory, users, Randy Hagen, and a long way down to where the user dictionaries are. You can add more dictionaries if you choose without doing the reinstall by simply clicking on this Add User Dictionary, and what it would do is it would allow you to navigate to wherever that location is, as I said, users, Randy Hagen, and then however deep it goes, to where the user dictionaries are, and you can add additional ones directly in the Preferences dialog box. Hyphenation, we have a number of rules for that. We can set that for proximity, which basically means if you get to a spot where it's looking to break a word in the middle, it will look at a space before it gets to the end of your text frame, where if it finds a spot to apply that hyphen, it's going to do it. It could also set it against rules where we've got user dictionary, and then Hunspel, in this case, applies a number of grammatical rules that allows InDesign to almost perfectly, almost being the operative term, know where common hyphenation points are and do that correctly for you. Beneath that, we've got the rules and options we can set for double quotes and single quotes. And as I click on that, we've got a number of rules for doing that that correspond basically to different languages. So as that's set, we could do that with bracketing. We could also use these for specialized communications. For example, publishing scripts for plays and TV shows. We have options for defining brackets that make that easier to see for specific uses in specific languages. We'll go for the default for our USA English, which shows the quotes coming in and out for the double quotes and the single quotes. Hyphenation exceptions. We have the ability to compose those exceptions by using the user dictionary, which you create yourself when you load in specialized words. Use it for an individual document, so what it'll do is it'll look for examples that you've already typed of a word, and if it matches up, it'll allow that. If there's a difference between the last 3 times you use that term in the same document, it would alert you. And then the user dictionary and document, which allows you to do both. We're going to go for the user dictionary and document option here because that gives us the most flexibility to work with it. With our user dictionary, we have the option to merge the user dictionary into the document or recompose all stories when they're modified. And what we're talking about with the dictionary is more than it checking our spelling. It also contains the rules that we use for the hyphenation to break those inside the word and the justification to define how it fits in a line from one line down to the next, as it does a wrap around for that. Let's go to our spelling layout next. As I go to the spelling layout, it talks about, first of all, what it'll do to alert you where you have problems. In this case, we've got checkboxes for all the options. So misspelled words, repeated words. So if I type the twice, it'll let me know that I have an error if I spell check. Uncapitalized words, now that doesn't mean any word that's uncapitalized. It just means ones that aren't stored in your default dictionary or your user dictionary specifically to match the case if you select that option when you install it. And then finally, uncapitalized sentences. Anywhere it sees a period, if the next character that's typed after however many spaces doesn't have a capital letter, it'll automatically alert you. Now we have dynamic spelling options available as well, and in this case what that does is it uses a number of spelling rules over and above the exact spelling of the 250,000 word hyphenation and justification dictionary you have loaded in for USA English as an example. We're going to leave that checked off because while those rules could be almost perfect, it's a lot better for us to just run off the dictionaries and for it to alert us to any word that isn't included. Let's go to the last spot, and that is the autocorrect layout. This will be the last one of these layouts we talk about in this unit of our InDesign CS6 course. We've got an option to enable autocorrect. I wouldn't normally turn this on, but to demonstrate it to you, I will hit that checkbox, and as I select it, what it does, it shows rules for autocorrect, that it would change a word that I typed in to a word automatically in InDesign CS6. So if I typed, for example, A-B-B-O-U-T, it's going to say that's a misspelled word, and it's going to automatically correct it to A-B-O-U-T, about, without me even asking for it to do a spell check. Now the reason I leave that out is because sometimes you enter certain words you want it to leave exactly the way you typed it in. Also, as we've often found out, when you do autocorrect, sometimes it comes up with some pretty embarrassing corrections for you that were not what you originally intended.